You are born in the royal palace of Tanis, near the edge of the Nile Delta, around the year 1070 before the Common Era. The 21st dynasty has already begun. You are the son of the Pharaoh, and that alone is enough to change the course of your life. Servants gather, scribes record, priests chant. No one asks who you are, only what you will become. Your arrival is not private. From the moment you are separated from your mother, hands pass you from one attendant to another. You are wiped down, weighed, wrapped in soft cloth. Your cries are noted on a wax tablet, then copied onto papyrus. A wet nurse waits nearby but does not approach until a priest gives his blessing. Another woman places an amulet in the folds of your linen. It is shaped like a scarab. You do not notice. You do not see the quiet urgency in the movements around you, the efficient silence of people who have done this many times before. You are not the first. You will not be the last. You are placed in a narrow cradle alongside others just like it. There is no name above your bed, only a small clay tablet marked with your birth date and the name of your mother's household. Around you, the air is thick with the scent of incense and sweat. Somewhere nearby, another baby is crying, louder than you. The nurse sighs, rises, and walks away. She does not come back for a long time. When she returns, she feeds you without speaking. Her touch is practiced, impersonal. Her eyes look past you. She knows not to grow attached. She has seen how quickly suns become shadows. You sleep, you wake. You are moved, measured, bathed. Sometimes you are held upright, and someone claps softly when your neck does not wobble. Sometimes you are left in the dark while the priests consult scrolls. A second son is born 3 days later, then a third. Their mothers are not yours. Their names will not match yours, but they are your brothers all the same. No one says it aloud, but already the nurses exchange glances when they pass your cradles. Already, your futures are being weighed, not in gold or grain, but in proximity, in timing, in whispers. You are the son of the Pharaoh, but so are they. And there will not be room for all of you. You see the women every day, moving between rooms like heatless fire. They wear linen and gold and perfume that stings your nose. And when they lean close, they smile, but only with their mouths. Their eyes flicker past you. Some speak in soft tones, some in songs you can't follow, but none of them say your name. None of them say mine. They lift you for a moment and pass you to someone else. One of them runs her fingers through your hair, murmurs a blessing, and walks away without looking back. Another places a bead bracelet on your wrist, then takes it away the next day without explanation. Their scent stays on your skin longer than their hands. When you wake in the night, they are never there. When you sleep, their voices fade like fading birdsong. You begin to recognize their sandals, the rhythm of their steps, but not what they mean to you. No one tells you who belongs to whom. The nurse who feeds you calls you Little Star. She does not say your name. You do not say hers. When you reach for her, she allows it. When you cry, she answers quickly, but only when no one is watching. She holds you tightly at times, but never for long. She knows she will be replaced. The other nurse is colder. Her hands are rougher, her movements practiced and fast. She wraps you, bathes you, and hands you off to others like a task to be completed. Sometimes one of the women in fine linen enters the nursery, and watches from the doorway, saying nothing. You reach for her once. She turns and leaves. The nurse says nothing. You do not reach again. Instead, you look at the ceiling, trace the painted stars with your eyes, and wonder if one of them was meant for you. One day, you are taken into a larger chamber. You are not alone. 3 other boys, all close to your age, are placed on fine rugs, surrounded by pillows and bowls of soft food. The room smells sweeter than usual. The women are already there, sitting behind a screen of woven reeds, their voices low and musical. You hear laughter that doesn't reach the eyes. One of the women gestures, and a nurse brings you closer. You sit in her lap. She smooths your hair and studies your face, tilting your chin from side to side. Her hands are cool. Her breath smells of pomegranate. She doesn't say your name. She says, "He's growing well." The others nod. Someone pours wine. A little later, you are passed to another, then another. You are touched, examined, kissed on the head, and returned. You do not cry. You do not cling. You begin to understand the pattern. You are here to be seen, not to see. When you are back in your own room, you look around and realize you don't know which scent belongs to whom. You remember faces only vaguely, gestures more clearly. No one tells you who they were. Days pass. Weeks. The visits continue. Sometimes you are taken to them. Sometimes they come to you. Always with gifts, always with silence. You are never told which woman carried you. You are never told which one bled for you, risked her life for you. You hear names spoken, gentle titles, formal praise, but never paired with love. Not for you. You are a prince, a potential heir, a piece on the board. And in this palace full of mothers, you have none. There are always other boys nearby. Some are older, with longer arms and careful words. Others are younger, soft-voiced, still carried from room to room. You share the same courtyards, the same tutors, the same air. Your sandals scrape the same tiles. Your bodies sweat under the same linen robes. And when one of you cries out, the others pretend not to hear. You eat together in silence. You learn your letters side by side. You are told to be brothers, and so you act like brothers. You nod when they speak, smile when they win, and laugh just a little too loudly when they fail. One of them tells you a joke one day and stares at you a moment too long, waiting to see if you understand the real meaning. You laugh. Of course you laugh. Then you forget the words, but remember the look. Your days are measured in repetition. Morning prayers, dry lessons, ceremonial posture. Even your games are formal, chosen by adults who watch from the edge of the garden. There are wooden animals, counting stones, rope climbing. Nothing that leaves marks. You are all kept healthy, clean, sharp. When one boy bruises another, the punishment is collective. When one lies, all are questioned. The older boys learn faster, not because they are clever, but because they see more. They have lived through more arrivals and more vanishings. You do not talk about the ones who are gone. You learn not to ask. One day, a boy who always sat beside you is replaced by another with a flatter voice and a slower step. No one mentions it. Not even the servants. You try to picture the missing boy's face, but it fades like a dream after waking. When the tutors leave and the formal voices disappear, the courtyard quiets. That's when the tension changes. The smiles widen. The tone shifts. A boy will offer you a date fruit and ask you a question too carefully worded. Another will correct your pronunciation, not for your benefit, but to show that he noticed. You begin to watch the timing of compliments. You hear flattery and suspicion in the same sentence. One afternoon, you win a game with counting stones, and no one claps. The next day, you lose on purpose. Everyone laughs. You do not understand all the rules, but you understand this. The one who looks too strong too soon becomes a target. So you hold your tongue, tilt your head, and thank them when they let you win. At night, you lie on your mat and stare at the ceiling. You hear their breathing, close but careful. Someone turns. Someone whispers. Someone coughs and holds it in. You realize that none of you ever sleep fully. Each boy holds himself in his own shape, curled too tightly or stretched too still. In dreams, you speak freely. In waking, you smile too much. You all do. It's not fear, not yet. It's the training of mouths to stay sweet, even when the eyes flick away. You are taught that brotherhood is sacred, but you feel it differently. You feel it in how no one touches each other's shoulders, how no one weeps when another is gone, how no one asks whose mother sent the tutor or whose uncle funds the shrine. You grow together, but only in distance. Words are everywhere, but none of them belong to you. Servants speak in rehearsed phrases, always polite, always empty. Yes, young one, as it pleases you, it is not my place. Their voices are soft, but their eyes are distant. They answer questions with half smiles or with silence, and if you ask again, you are told to wait, to grow, to understand later. The tutors are different, but only slightly. They speak longer, more precisely, using terms you are expected to memorize but not question. They recite from scrolls, correct your posture, praise your ability to sit still. When you try to ask why something is the way it is, they tilt their heads as if they didn't hear and move on. You stop asking after the third time. No one says you can't ask. But the space around your questions always collapses too quickly. You begin to hear things that are not addressed to you. Conversations behind curtains, quiet names said too carefully, titles that shift depending on who is present. You learn to listen without reacting, to remember without repeating. The older boys speak less around adults and more when no one is watching. You copy them. One of them tells you, "It's safer when they don't know you're listening." You don't understand what that means, but you nod anyway. You are praised more when you're quiet, when you wait your turn, when you repeat exactly what was taught without adding anything else. Curiosity is not punished, but it is never rewarded. Obedience, however, is always noticed, especially when it looks natural. One day, a visiting scribe asks your name. You say it, and he nods. Then he asks whose son you are. You pause. You know your mother's name now, but you're not sure if that's the right answer. You say, "Of the house of Meret," and he writes it down. Later that day, one of the older tutors tells you never to answer a question unless you know exactly what it means. He does not smile. You remember his tone longer than his words. That evening, you sit beside a statue of Thoth in the school chamber, pretending to read the glyphs on the base. You trace them with your fingers, but you don't ask what they mean. You know someone is watching, even if they never say so. With time, you begin to shape your face like the others do, a neutral expression that can mean patience, understanding, or quiet resistance. You copy the way they breathe through their noses, how they lower their eyes without lowering their heads. You don't remember when you stopped asking questions, only that one day you realized it had been a while. Listening becomes easier. You hear the small tones of approval, the hesitation before correction, the difference between truth and ritual. You are not praised for being clever. You are praised for being still. And so you become still, not because you are calm, but because that's the only part of you that anyone seems to trust. It begins with a space at the eating mat. One morning there is simply more room. No one says anything. The bowls are arranged as usual. The date paste is placed between you and the boy to your left. And when you reach for it, your elbow brushes nothing. You glance sideways, then forward again. The tutors do not pause. The servants do not adjust the seating. The lesson begins, and the day moves forward. Later in the garden, you look for him again. The boy who always ran slightly ahead, who never answered questions directly. His sandals are not there. His stone from the counting game lies untouched. You think about asking where he is, but no one else has, and the silence feels thick enough to swallow your voice. A few days pass. Another boy stops attending the morning prayers, then the afternoon reading. His name is not said aloud, but one of the nurses carefully unrolls his sleeping mat and removes it without comment. That night, when the lamps are dim and everyone lies on their backs pretending to sleep, you hear someone whisper his name. The whisper is soft, shaped like breath more than sound. No one answers. The next morning, his stool is gone too. The priest who oversees your scrollwork lectures the group on clarity and discipline, then dismisses you with a blessing. When you leave the room, you notice the door to the small northern wing is sealed with a pale cloth strip. You pretend not to see it. You walk faster than usual, not because you are late, but because you want your sandals to sound loud against the tile. Something solid, something heard. Eventually, it becomes normal. Faces disappear, voices vanish, the rhythm continues. A boy who shared your tutor is replaced by another, a little taller, a little more cautious. A younger one trips during a recitation, and the next week his place is taken by someone with no accent at all. You no longer expect explanations. No one sends farewells. No one speaks of who was there before. Even the scribes seem to write slower in the days that follow a disappearance, as if the act of recording someone too precisely might call unwanted attention. You feel a quiet pressure not to ask, not to remember too vividly. The boys around you laugh more in the evenings now, short, nervous sounds that die too quickly. The games are played with softer voices. The rules remain, but the joy becomes thinner, like a color diluted with water. You start watching more closely. Who eats faster? Who avoids eye contact? Who flinches when a priest approaches? You measure glances, catalog small changes. You begin to understand that smiles are not signs of peace but shields, and that the absence of punishment is not the same as safety. Your own body feels heavier in the quiet moments, as if it carries more than it did before. When you look at the remaining boys, you wonder who will vanish next. You wonder if they wonder the same about you, but none of you speak it aloud. That would be foolish. That would be dangerous. Instead, you nod. You fold your arms the right way, and you remember the name of the boy whose mat was taken first. You do not say it, but you remember. It begins without warning. A change so small it might have gone unnoticed if your days were not already carved into routine. A different servant enters the learning chamber, carrying a tray of fruit you're not used to. Your seat is moved slightly closer to the front. The tutor nods to you more than usual. You think nothing of it at first. But in the evening, the nurse who feeds you adjusts your sash twice instead of once and presses a carved scarab into your palm before sleep. She doesn't explain why. You don't ask. But you hear the other boys whispering near the columns when they think you're not listening. Not words, just your name, said a little slower, a little more carefully. And one of them, the boy with the quick hands and the mother who always smiled too widely, does not join you for breakfast the next morning. You don't see your mother often. She appears like wind, not called, not questioned. But today she stands in the corridor, behind a curtain of woven beads. You don't look at her directly, but you feel her presence. Her perfume lingers long after she passes. That night, your sandals are placed at the center of the row instead of the end. The next morning, a priest of higher rank than usual blesses your water. Nothing is said, no announcements, no explanations. But someone's mother is weeping in the west wing, and the walls carry sound even when the air is still. You know the rhythm of grief now, how it's not spoken, but arranged. A new attendant appears near your room. Your meals arrive warmer. Your pillow is replaced with one that smells faintly of cedar. The shift is quiet but complete. You are no longer ignored. You are noticed, cautiously, deliberately. Your answers during lessons are met with gentle praise. Your mistakes are corrected more gently than before. The youngest of the scribes starts standing when you enter. You are not told why, but you remember how another boy once sat where you now sit, and how his sandals had a red stitch near the heel. You remember because he was fast and kind and careful. And now his name is not spoken, not even in whispers. You don't know if he's gone. But the space he left is now yours, and the hands that placed you there are too delicate to leave fingerprints. You never asked your mother for anything. You don't know if she did what they say. You don't even know what they say, not exactly. But you feel it in the way the others look at you now. Not with hate, not yet, but with calculation. As if they're trying to solve a riddle you didn't write. You feel it in your own skin, how it tingles under your robes when someone enters the room behind you. And when you lie down to sleep, you trace the beads at your collar and wonder whether she prays for you, whether she watches you from behind some veil, counting your breaths, arranging your path, whether she chose you, or whether she simply removed someone else. Either way, you are closer now, closer than before, and someone is gone. You sleep in a quiet room with high ceilings and thick walls, but the silence is never complete. There is always the soft patter of sandals, the faint scrape of a brush across stone, the rustle of linen too deliberate to be accidental. Someone checks the oil lamps near the doors long after you've closed your eyes. Someone adjusts the fabric screen behind your bed after you've fallen still. You are not supposed to notice. You are supposed to be resting, growing, preparing. But you know the weight of eyes, even when you cannot see them. You lie still, careful not to move too suddenly, not to give the impression that you are awake. It is easier that way, for you and for whoever is watching. The fear is not loud. It is practiced, controlled. You do not flinch when you hear it anymore, but it never leaves. Sometimes it is a servant girl pretending to clean after hours. Sometimes It is a priest you have not met before, standing near the door with his hands folded as if waiting for something. Once it was your tutor, sitting silently near the corner wall, watching you breathe in the dark. He did not move. You pretended not to see him. When morning came, nothing was said. He corrected your grammar more gently than usual that day. You wonder how long he stayed. You wonder if he saw you dreaming. You have learned not to ask. Whatever is meant to be known will be told to you, and what is not meant to be said will surround you, settle into your skin, and change the shape of your silence. You grow used to adjusting your body while pretending to sleep. If your arm is numb, you wait for the moment the watcher blinks. If your lips are dry, you shift your tongue without moving your face. The guards outside your door change every few hours, but the feeling remains constant. No gesture is truly private. No breath entirely your own. You have dreams of being alone, but even in those dreams, someone follows at a distance. You do not run. You simply keep walking, as if you both know how the dream must end. During the day, your tutors tell you that the gods see all things, that pharaohs are never unwatched, and you nod because it is meant as comfort. But it does not comfort. It only confirms what you already feel in your bones. When you wake, there is often someone standing nearby, pretending not to be looking. They rearrange flowers, fold cloth, whisper prayers. You meet their eyes only for a second, then look away. You've learned how to protect yourself without needing walls. You keep your face unreadable, your hands steady, your movements deliberate. Even in rest, you are on display. Even in stillness, you are being read. You understand now that the palace does not sleep. It waits. Waits to see who you will become, how quickly, and under whose guidance. You are watched not because they care, but because they cannot afford not to. And so you remain still, night after night, letting their eyes pass through you like shadows across stone. You do not resist. You do not react. You sleep like someone who knows he is never truly alone. You see him only from a distance, usually surrounded by silence. The corridors clear before he arrives, sandals scraping fast against polished stone as servants vanish behind curtains. When he walks, no one moves. He does not speak as he passes, but the air changes. You feel it before you see him. A stillness, a pause, as if the palace holds its breath. You are standing in line with the others, eyes down, hands folded. He moves past you, robes brushing faintly against the breeze stirred by his guards. Once his shadow touches your feet. You do not lift your head. You feel heat rise in your throat. Not fear, not awe, something heavier. You do not know what his voice sounds like outside of ritual. You have heard him speak in the temples, in the halls, on festival days, but never to you, never near you. He looks at you sometimes, a flicker of recognition or something colder. His eyes pause on your face a moment longer than on the others. You are not sure if it means anything. You replay it later, alone, wondering if the glance was real or imagined. The other boys say nothing afterward. No one dares mention when he is near. But you feel their tension shift, the way backs straighten and voices drop to a whisper. He is more myth than man, a figure on coins and carvings, taller than life, untouchable. And yet you know his scent now. You know the color of the band across his shoulder, the pattern of gold around his sandals. You count the days between sightings, once, twice a month, if that, always unannounced, always brief. One morning, you are summoned to the edge of the garden where he is meeting with priests. You stand behind a column, instructed not to speak unless spoken to. You wait. He turns once in your direction, says something to a man beside him, then continues. You are dismissed without a word. You walk away with your mouth dry and your heart thudding too loudly. That night, you lie awake imagining what you would have said if given the chance. You practice the words silently, shaping them with your tongue, but never letting them out. You wonder if your mother knows what he smells like up close. You wonder if she ever stood as close as you just did. You wonder if he even remembers her name. You do not ask. You no longer ask questions with answers. And yet, you wait. Each morning, part of you listens for footsteps heavier than the others. You notice the subtle shift in the guards' faces when his presence is near. You turn corners slowly, just in case. You do not run to him. That would be unthinkable. But part of you hopes, quietly, foolishly, that one day he might stop, that he might speak to you, even if only to ask your name. Not as Pharaoh, not as a symbol, just as a man. That he might place a hand on your shoulder and say he sees you. You carry that hope like a fragile ember hidden beneath the layers they've wrapped around your heart. You never tell anyone. You never let it show. But it burns all the same. Every time he walks past and says nothing. Every time you stay silent, even though part of you wants to scream. It happens in the middle of the night, or just before dawn. No one tells you. No one needs to. The sound of the palace changes. The sandals move slower. The birds do not sing. Even the wind seems to hesitate. When you wake, your room has already been swept twice. The servants fold your robe with unusual care. No one meets your eyes. At breakfast, the bowls are smaller, and the dates are cut into perfect halves. Someone you do not recognize stands near the door, watching. You look at the boys beside you and see it in their faces. They know too. No one says the word. No one dares. But it hangs in the air like thick smoke. The Pharaoh is dead. You feel it more than you understand it, as if the stone beneath your feet has cooled, as if the building itself is holding its breath. The official announcement does not come until hours later. A priest enters the great hall in full robes, flanked by scribes. He speaks softly, formally, as if the gods themselves are listening. The court bows. You bow with them. When you rise, nothing is different, but everything is. The name you have spoken in prayers is now a memory. The face carved into temple walls is a ghost, and the eyes of every adult in the room are already shifting, calculating, scanning the rows of sons and servants and watchers. The body of the Pharaoh has not yet cooled, but the future has already begun to rearrange itself. That evening, no lamps are lit in the outer chambers. The halls remain dim. A woman you've never spoken to crosses your path and nods, her smile too steady, too wide. The next day, the palace is cleaner than you have ever seen it. Drapes are changed. Flowers are replaced. Statues are scrubbed. The guards at every entrance wear fresh linen and stand a little taller. No one speaks above a whisper. But the silence feels sharp now, not soft. A cousin you haven't seen in months arrives suddenly, his robes too fine for the occasion. A minor wife of the late Pharaoh is seen walking with the high priest for longer than usual. You hear footsteps at strange hours, meetings behind closed doors. The courtyards are not empty, but no one lingers. You walk with the other boys, heads down, eyes forward. Every gesture you make is deliberate. Every breath is borrowed. Someone has already begun moving pieces on the board, and you do not know whose hand they serve. At night, you lie awake and try to remember his face, not the Pharaoh, but the man. But you realize you never knew the difference. You remember his robes, his voice in the temple, the way the air changed when he entered a room, but not his scent, not the lines of his hands, not the sound of him breathing. And now he is gone, just like the boys who vanished, just like the mothers who stopped appearing. You understand now why everyone smiles a little too much, why the silence feels heavy. It is not mourning, it is waiting. The throne is empty, and every face you see is a mask, even your own. The day the names are spoken is quiet, but not still. You are led into a chamber lined with polished stone, the air thick with incense and heat. The high priest reads from a scroll older than you are, his voice flat and dry. 3 names are announced. Yours is one of them. Not the first, not the last. No one reacts. The room remains perfectly composed, each face carved into courtesy. But when you are dismissed, the energy shifts. The servants walk faster. The guards blink less. The advisors begin to move in pairs instead of alone. You feel the space around you stretch and tighten at once. You are now one of those who might become Pharaoh, and more importantly, one of those who might not. The other 2 boys are familiar. You have grown up beside them, traded polite phrases, memorized the way they speak and laugh and fall silent. One is older, more practiced, more prepared. The other is younger, but his mother is powerful, and her voice carries in the right rooms. After the announcement, they do not speak to you more than usual, but their silence feels warmer now, like breath held between teeth. You pass one of them in the hall, and he places a hand on your shoulder, too firmly. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. You nod the way you were taught. That night, you do not sleep. You stare at the ceiling and count how many guards passed your door. Fewer than the night before. In the days that follow, tutors change. Meals are served separately. Schedules shift. You begin to see men you do not recognize standing near doorways, eyes alert but unfocused. The kind of gaze that isn't meant to be seen but recorded. Weapons appear in the hands of those who haven't carried them in months. Practice fields are cleaned. Armory doors stay open longer. Everything becomes sharper, cleaner, more polite. One morning, you find that the boy who used to polish ceremonial blades is gone. A new one takes his place. Older, stronger, quieter. You ask no questions. You only watch. The words spoken in chambers are still measured, still wrapped in ritual. But you can feel the tension blooming beneath them like rot under stone. Every gesture becomes a test. Every shared glance has weight. The women of the court begin to speak more softly and more often. Your mother appears more frequently, dressed more richly, seated closer to the center. Her voice is calm. Her eyes are not. You begin to recognize who walks in shadow and who stands in flame. The path ahead is neither straight nor steady. You are not the favored heir. Not yet. But you are named. And that is enough to draw both loyalty and envy, enough to be protected, enough to be hunted. When you bow before the statue of the falcon god, you keep your head lower than before, not from reverence but from instinct. You were chosen, or at least mentioned, and now everything you do will be remembered or erased. The offer is not made in words, not really. No one hands you a scroll or speaks a proclamation. Instead, a meeting is arranged in a sunlit chamber with no windows, where the floor is cool and the air smells of myrrh. You are seated across from 3 men who have never all been in the same room together. A high priest, a general, and a vizier with fingers stained in ink. They speak slowly, carefully, as if reading a story that has not yet been written. They tell you that the gods have shown favor, that balance must be maintained, that your name has support. Not universal support, of course, but enough. They do not ask if you are ready. They do not ask what you want. They ask only if you understand what must be done. You nod. And with that, you are no longer a boy waiting. You are a prince ascending, if you survive the climb. Afterward, everything sharpens. Courtyards are swept twice a day. The guards assigned to your quarters are changed without notice. Dishes are tasted before they reach your mouth. The robe you wear is now a different shade of white, brighter, stiffer, harder to move in. You are taught how to bow at new angles, how to pause longer before speaking, how to sign your name with more pressure, more certainty. One of the generals walks with you along the riverbank and speaks of loyalty in vague, circular phrases. He smiles too often. You understand that he is not speaking to you, but to those who may be watching. Later that night, a servant you've known since childhood is reassigned to the kitchens. You are not told why. No one mentions it again. The next day, your mother appears at the far end of the ceremony hall. She does not speak. She stands perfectly still while others bow and bless and whisper. Her eyes stay fixed on yours until the last priest lowers his hands. When she turns to leave, her veil slips slightly, revealing the line of her mouth, tight, unreadable. You do not see her again for weeks, but you begin to notice the women around her move with greater confidence. Their attendants grow in number. Their voices grow softer, but somehow more present. A minor wife of your father suddenly returns from the provinces with her son. They are not invited into your wing, but you see them walking under the colonnade. The boy meets your eyes. He does not blink. Every smile now feels rehearsed. Every phrase is an offering laced with condition. The title you are being groomed for comes with a cost written in invisible ink. You understand that the men who support you today may call for your silence tomorrow, that the gods invoked in your favor may be used to justify your replacement. You are not yet crowned. You are still a name on parchment, and that name carries weight, enough to shift loyalties, to awaken ambitions, to inspire fear. You begin to sleep with one eye half open, not from paranoia, but from calculation. You are being offered a throne, but the hands that lift you toward it are not empty. Some hold knives, others hold debts. None are clean, and not all will still be reaching for you when you take your seat. The coronation begins before sunrise. You are washed in water brought from 5 different branches of the Nile. Oil is poured over your head until it runs down your back. You are robed, painted, weighed, measured, and recited. The chants echo off the limestone walls, repeating names you now carry whether you want them or not. You kneel when told, raise your arms when instructed, and speak the words written centuries before your birth. When the golden crown is placed on your head, it is heavier than you expected. Not in weight, but in presence. Your neck stiffens. Your hands do not shake, but they no longer feel like yours. The crowd outside cheers on cue. Inside, everyone bows. The high priest pronounces you Pharaoh. You are now the living god of Egypt, and yet you feel smaller than you did yesterday. The days that follow are filled with ceremony, each more ornate than the last. You ride through the streets in a chariot flanked by guards whose names you do not know. You visit temples and touch altars, your hands guided by others. You listen to oaths and blessings from men who never looked at you before. You sign decrees you didn't write, written in ink you didn't choose for people you'll never meet. You are present, but not active, visible, but not known. Everyone treats you as sacred, which means no one treats you as human. You are surrounded by people, but every conversation is built on distance. No one asks what you think. They explain what you are to think. You are the Pharaoh, yes, but you are not alone. You are a throne shared by shadows. Those who smiled at your coronation now circle more slowly. Their voices have softened, but their eyes are sharper. Old advisors return from quiet retirements. Generals' sons are promoted. Distant cousins reappear, bearing gifts and memories you do not share. The high priest asks for nothing, and yet receives everything. The council meets without summoning you. When they do include you, it is with the expectation that you will nod. When you do not, the room tightens. You feel the walls learning how to hold you in place. There is no resistance, only adjustment. Everything around you adapts to your position, including you, including the threats. At night, you walk the halls of your new wing. It is quiet, lit with oil lamps and echoing footsteps. You pass servants who kneel too slowly, guards who glance too long, statues that resemble your face more than your face resembles itself. You are Pharaoh now, no longer just a boy in waiting. And yet, nothing feels yours. The power you hold belongs to the role, not the person. And the people around you, those who raised you, those who feared you, those who pushed you forward, are still here, still watching, still alive. You were crowned. You survived. But the game has not ended. It has only removed its mask. The first to go is the one everyone expected. He is older than you by a few years, clever with words and always too quick to smile. His mother once held court beside your own, and her voice carried in rooms where yours did not. Now he is being sent south to oversee construction near the Nubian border, where the days are long, the water thin, and the messages take weeks to travel. The ceremony is formal, the farewell polite. You hand him a staff of carved wood, gilded at the tip. He bows deeply, says all the right things, and disappears the next morning. You do not see his mother for several days. When she returns to the hall, she wears darker linen. No one mentions the color. No one mentions the sun. But they all bow to you more precisely after that. The second is chosen with less ceremony. He is younger, quieter, but connected to a line of priests older than your dynasty. You assign him to the temple of Khnum, officially to learn discipline and serve the gods, unofficially to remove him from every hallway that matters. He does not argue. His eyes widen slightly, then narrow. He knows. He nods. He kneels. And then he leaves. His mother petitions the court 2 days later, citing dreams and omens. She is granted a private audience, But her request is not honored. She is reassigned to a garden villa outside the palace walls. Her attendants are reduced. Her voice vanishes from the court like a breeze that never returns. The third is more complicated. He is not sent away. He is simply no longer found. A servant reports his absence at morning meal. His sleeping quarters are undisturbed, his sandals missing, his guards still at their posts. A search is ordered, publicly, quietly. No scrolls are written, no names spoken. You ask one question of one man, and he bows too low before answering. Nothing further is said. Later that week, his name is no longer included in prayers. His mother falls ill. A shrine is erected in his honor, small and clean and rarely visited. The other boys grow quieter. The women become more careful. No one says the word removal, but everyone knows it when they see it. You make no speeches, no declarations. You offer honors, assignments, transfers. The court accepts them with bowed heads and heavy silences. You move slowly, always with ritual, always with courtesy. But each time you rearrange the board, the palace exhales a little more evenly. You learn who watches from behind columns, who flinches at unexpected summons, who smiles too easily, and who has stopped smiling at all. You take note, you adjust, you proceed, and no one interferes. Not because they agree, but because they fear what it would mean to stand in your way. You were raised among brothers. You now rule among shadows, and you know how to make them shorter. One by one, quietly, without leaving a mark. The match is announced before you even meet her eyes. A priest delivers the formal words before a gathering of elders, followed by gifts and titles and blessings. She is the daughter of a man who controls grain, ships, and temples, not necessarily in that order. Her family's reach extends beyond the palace walls, beyond the river even, into lands where your name is carved but not feared. You are told the union will strengthen your reign, silence rivals, and solidify the path forward. You are not asked what you think. You are reminded of what you owe. She arrives 2 days later, veiled and still, flanked by women who wear their silence like armor. When the cloth is lifted, she smiles the way statues do. Beautiful, precise, unreadable. The ceremony is long. You are dressed in linen touched by gold, your hands painted with oil and lined with kohl. She kneels, stands, recites, and listens in perfect rhythm. You both say words chosen for you. You both bow to gods who neither bless nor interrupt. The feast that follows is quiet, full of controlled laughter and measured glances. She speaks when spoken to. She lifts her cup at the exact right moment. Her father never looks directly at you, but his voice fills the hall as if it belongs to the building itself. You feel the weight of your crown more sharply that evening, not because it is heavier, but because it now balances a name that is not your own, tied to a woman you cannot read. In the days that follow, she moves into your wing with quiet steps and perfect posture. Her attendants learn your routines faster than your advisors ever did. She does not ask questions. She does not make demands. She offers suggestions like folded linen, smooth, soft, easy to ignore, but always present. She praises your words in front of others, disagrees only when you are alone, and even then only gently. You try to find something beneath the surface, warmth, fear, hunger, but her stillness remains perfect. You realize you will never truly know her. And that perhaps, is what makes her valuable. Loyalty is not built on affection. It is built on predictability. And she is the most predictable person you've ever met. You do not love her. You do not hate her. You trust her because it would be dangerous not to. You smile beside her because anything else would be remembered. You speak of the gods and the harvest and your shared duty because silence would be suspicious. When you lie beside her, you feel the tension of two lives forced into alignment. But she never pulls away. She never turns her face. She does what is required, and so do you. You are married now, not to a woman, but to a dynasty, to a network of favors and alliances that stretch farther than your own voice can reach. You did not choose her, but now she is yours, or at least she wears your ring, and that, for now, is enough. They place him in your arms before you ask. His body is warm, wrapped in thin linen, still damp from the bath. His face is red, lips tight, fists closed around nothing. You are told he cried at birth, loud and strong, a good sign. The nurse says this with pride, as if his lungs were a form of loyalty. You look down at him and feel the weight, not in your arms, but somewhere deeper, as if you're holding something that already belongs to others. He moves slightly, jerks his leg, presses his face into your robe. You shift, awkwardly, trying not to let him slip. He is yours. He is flesh of your flesh. And yet, as he settles against you, there is only quiet. No fear, no joy, no recognition, just a child. And your hands, uncertain, beneath him. The priest recites blessings while incense burns too close to your face. The room is full of people pretending not to watch. You know their names. You know which of them bowed faster after the announcement. Which of them adjusted their tone when they spoke to you in the days before his birth. Some are smiling now. Others are studying your reaction. You keep your expression even. You nod at the appropriate words. You kiss the child's forehead when the ceremony requires it. He does not respond. He is half asleep, barely aware of the performance around him. You hand him back when it is time, and he is carried away to the women's quarters. A wet nurse is already waiting. Another will be chosen by nightfall. Guards are posted near the entrance, and a second door is added to the hallway. You don't ask who suggested it. You simply nod. It is what's expected. In the following days, your name is carved again, now as father. The scribes add a new column to the family records. Small statues are commissioned. One of your advisors suggests new offerings at the temple. The child's mother remains in seclusion, visited by midwives and relatives who speak of lineage and fortune and gods. You do not visit her. You send gifts, tokens, messages in the proper form. The palace is quieter than usual, and yet it feels louder inside your head. You think about the moment you held him. Replay it. Try to find what was missing. Something warm, something sharp, something real. But it's still a blank surface. The child exists. You acknowledge him. You protect him. And you move on to the next decree. You do not mention him again for a week. Then 2. When his name appears in daily reports, you read it without pause. He eats, he sleeps, he grows. The nurses report no illness, no difficulty. He is healthy. Everyone is pleased. Everyone expects your pride. But you are careful. You show respect, not affection. Presence, not connection. You know what sons become. You remember how boys disappear. You remember how glances shift when a child begins to resemble power. So you keep your face still. You watch from a distance. And somewhere beneath the robes and the rituals, a question settles in your chest like stone. What kind of father guards his child more from himself than from the world? Your days are no longer yours. They begin before the sun, with voices outside your chamber and robes laid out by hands you do not see. You are bathed, dried, painted, draped. Every fold of linen is precise. Every ornament weighed, adjusted, checked again. A servant whispers the day's order before you speak a word. The first hall is already waiting. Priests with scrolls, generals with sealed clay, nobles with prepared blessings. You walk among them slowly, as tradition demands. You nod when they bow, touch objects that are passed to you, raise your hand when it is time to end the speech. Nothing is difficult. Nothing is yours. These rituals have been performed for generations. You are the latest figure in the pattern. You know when to stand, when to sit, when to breathe. In the temple, incense burns in coils so thick you lose the ceiling. You hold offerings shaped like birds, ankhs, scepters. You speak prayers written long before you were born. The gods listen, or they don't. It makes no difference. The priests around you hum in rhythm, their hands raised, their eyes closed in practiced awe. You kneel, you rise, you listen to verses about your divine right, your eternal role, your perfect name. And then you walk to the next room, where scribes await with documents needing your seal. You ask no questions. You are told what each one means in summary, but you do not read them. They flow past you, ink on papyrus, bound for someone else's hands. You press your ring to the wax, one after another, until your thumb aches and your eyes blur. This is what it means to rule. There are more chambers, more meetings. Men speak to you with urgency, but not with hope. They are not asking for your guidance. They are asking for your permission to continue what they have already begun. You give it. You nod. You approve. Sometimes you ask a question, not because you expect an answer, but because silence would feel too passive. They respond with words arranged like shields, polished and useless. You do not remember their faces. You remember the patterns of their robes, the stiffness of their bows, the way they wait a beat longer than necessary before leaving. You are not unimportant. You are essential. As a gate, as a symbol, as a center through which everything must pass. But never stop. Evening comes, and you are alone in a room with cool stone walls and a small fire. You remove the crown yourself. You peel away the paint, the cloth, the words you wore all day. Your body aches in places you never name. You stare at the wall, where your likeness has been freshly painted, tall, serene, divine. You do not recognize it. You do not hate it. But it does not move when you do. It does not speak. It does not rest. Tomorrow you will do it again, and the day after, and the day after that. Because you are Pharaoh, in title, in presence, in endless ritual duty. And the kingdom moves through you, not because of you. You stop answering questions the way people expect. At first, it is a matter of caution. Too many eyes, too many ears, too many ways for your words to be taken out of context, reshaped, whispered into someone else's mouth. Then it becomes habit. Then it becomes craft. You learn to pause just slightly before responding, to let silence settle in the space between the question and your gaze. People take that pause as wisdom. They say you are deliberate, thoughtful, measured. They do not know that sometimes you are just tired. Sometimes you are simply buying time. But the result is the same. They lean in when you speak. They repeat your words later, even if you only said one. You begin to use your face as a tool, a tilt of the head, a narrowing of the eyes, the faintest twitch of the jaw. Each gesture becomes a message. Sometimes you look away and say nothing, and that absence of response is more powerful than any command. Sometimes you nod slowly, and men leave your presence convinced they have your approval, even when you were not listening. The court adjusts. The priests adjust. Everyone wants to believe they understand what you meant, and so they create meaning for you. You let them. The more you hold back, the more they project. The less you say, the more they write. You become less a man and more a mirror, and they admire themselves in your silence. Your advisors stop offering full reports. They summarize instead, watching your expression for clues. When you say, "I see," they bow. When you say, "perhaps," they act. Even when you do speak clearly, they hesitate. Did he really mean that? Did he mean more? Was that agreement or warning? You see the doubt form behind their eyes. You see the calculations, and you say nothing. Let them wonder. Let them fear the silence more than any verdict. You perfect the art of not committing. When someone speaks too boldly, you respond with a single word, "Noted." When someone flatters you too eagerly, you answer with a smile that could mean anything. They leave unsure, which is safer than letting them feel secure. Outside the palace, they call you wise. The people believe your stillness is strength. The priests say your quiet is divine. Even your enemies grow cautious. They send messengers with vague offers, careful not to press too hard. And within all of this, you sit, you watch, and you say almost nothing. You are respected, even revered, but rarely known. Your silence becomes your shield, your weapon, your language. You are not misunderstood. You are unreadable. And in a world that wants to control you, that is the closest thing to freedom you have left. They grow faster than you expect. The first one begins walking earlier than the nurses predicted. The second one speaks in full sentences before his third year. The third stares too long at things most children ignore: fire, statues, guards who don't move. You see them at ceremonies, at blessings, at family meals arranged for the court's benefit. You watch how they carry themselves, how they study your face, how they imitate your gestures without understanding them. You try to offer instruction, but they're too young to listen. Or maybe they're already listening too carefully. You remember being their age. You remember the way everyone else's voice shaped yours. Now you see your words landing in their ears, your silences growing behind their eyes. It makes you uneasy. It makes you wonder what they'll do with it. Their mothers become quieter around you, not out of fear, out of focus. They begin to move more deliberately, dress more richly, linger longer in the halls where decisions are made. They speak to each other in phrases that carry weight but no shape, smiles full of smoke. You know what this is. You've seen it before. You grew up in it. And now you feel it shifting again, this time around your own children. No one says the word succession. It would be too early, too obvious. But you hear it in the way tutors are chosen, in the way gifts arrive from certain provinces, in the way one child is invited more often than another. One day, you see a boy, your son, walking beside a man you didn't summon. You say nothing, but you watch. They begin comparing each other without knowing they're doing it. Who sits closest to you? Who is corrected more gently? Who receives your glance when speaking? You try to treat them evenly, but fairness isn't balance. One always wants more. One always notices. One always waits too long before responding, trying to sound older than he is. You start to recognize in them things you've forgotten about yourself: ambition, calculation, longing. It doesn't look like danger, not yet. It looks like hunger. But you know how hunger grows. You've seen what it becomes when fed too well or left too long. You wonder what version of you each one is already building inside his mind. You wonder if they'll ever forgive you for what you haven't done yet. You begin to fear them in quiet ways, not as sons, but as futures, as questions you can't control, as shadows that move with your name. You increase the guards near their quarters, not to protect them from others, but from each other. You shorten their audiences, lengthen the space between their visits. You listen more carefully to the reports from their tutors. You test the food they eat with your own eyes. You think about how easily a smile can hide resentment, how early the seeds are planted. You fear them because they are watching, because they are learning, because everything you survived, they are now preparing to repeat, and because one day, one of them will win. But you do not yet know which. You begin with a small decree, a change in grain distribution, modest, logical, even ceremonial. You sign the order with your own hand, mark it with the ring of kingship, and send it through the proper channels. Days pass. The scroll returns to you amended, rephrased, redistributed. The regions affected are not the ones you selected. The amounts have shifted. The justification has grown 3 times in length. It is your decree, still sealed with your name, but it no longer carries your voice. When you ask why, your advisors speak gently about logistics, tradition, precedent. They praise your initiative, your clarity, your wisdom. They thank you for your guidance, and nothing changes. You try again. A priest too powerful, a tax too harsh, a festival too long. You raise questions, suggest adjustments, offer alternatives. Each time they nod. Each time they listen with patient eyes and polished words. They bring back new versions of your intentions wrapped in layers of approval, as if they are doing you a favor. The priest is quietly honored in a different province. The tax is restructured, but not reduced. The festival is extended by 3 days in your name. You read their revisions with care and realize the truth. You are not opposing them. You are walking along a path already built, your footprints barely deeper than dust. They shape your will before it leaves your lips. You begin to notice who speaks first in meetings, who ends conversations, who provides answers before you finish your question. You see how your guards change position depending on who enters the room. You see documents arrive already signed, pending royal confirmation, as if your signature is a ceremony, not an act. You feel your own voice begin to fray, still respected, still echoed, but no longer followed, not because they defy you, because they never truly need to. Their power is older than your rule, their structure stronger than your presence. You were meant to inhabit it, not alter it. The kingdom runs not on your commands, but on its own inertia. On custom, alliance, timing, fear. You stop trying to reshape things, not out of defeat, but recognition. You conserve your energy. You withdraw from meetings where your role is decorative. You sign fewer papers, speak fewer words. When they ask your opinion, you give it in pieces. Vague, incomplete, enough to give them pause but not direction. You watch what they do when you stop pushing, and you learn. You learn how many decisions do not require you, how many systems flow without interruption, how often your presence is simply a weight, heavy, expected, unmoving. You are Pharaoh, the face, the name, the seal, but the kingdom decides itself, and you, if you are wise, no longer pretend otherwise. It begins with a proposal from the Stoneworkers Guild, a new colossus on the southern road, where merchants and envoys pass in and out of the capital. You approve it without speaking. They already know how tall it will be, what pose you'll hold, what titles will be carved along the base. You don't ask to change it. You sign the order, nod at the steward, and leave the chamber. Days later, the quarry begins to move. Dust rises from the banks of the river. Hundreds of men are put to work sculpting your image from something harder than memory. When they ask where the statue's gaze should fall, you say, "Forward." You don't explain what you mean. You're not sure yourself. Soon there are more. One for the plaza outside the temple. One for the port. One for a shrine on the edge of the desert. Each one taller than the last. Each one built with careful precision, but not reverence. The artisans do not see you as a god. They see you as a client. They carve your face not as it is, but as it should be, symmetrical, unaging, ideal. You watch them from a shaded platform as they chisel your jaw, broaden your shoulders, smooth the creases around your mouth. When they ask if it looks correct, you say yes. You do not mention the emptiness behind the eyes. You do not mention that they are modeling you on someone who no longer exists. You do not mention that you don't believe in the figure they're creating. The priests declare the statues holy. The people leave offerings at their feet. Flowers, coins, folded prayers. Children are taught to point to them when saying your name. Travelers see them and think of strength, eternity, legacy. But you know better. You know the limestone will crack in 100 years. That names fade faster than stone. That no statue has ever stopped time. Still, you order another and another. Not because you are proud, but because you are afraid. Not of death, but of erasure. Of vanishing without trace. Of becoming one of those pharaohs whose name is spoken once in a century by accident and never remembered again. You cannot control the future, but you can leave it wait. At night, you walk past one of the statues alone. The face stares above the trees, expression blank, mouth closed in perfect calm. You stop and look up, hoping for something. Familiarity, perhaps, or comfort. But it doesn't speak to you. It never has. It is your shape without your story, your outline without your doubt. And you wonder how many more will be built. How many will stand long after your sons forget you? How many will be praised by people who never knew you were tired, uncertain, frightened? You keep walking. The statue does not turn. It does not follow. It only watches forward, as you once commanded, toward a future that will forget the man beneath the crown. It happens slowly, then all at once. A meeting is canceled. A procession is shortened. A foreign envoy is received by your advisors instead of you. At first, you think it's coincidence, a shift in schedule, a matter of convenience. But the pattern grows. Fewer scrolls arrive each morning. Fewer names are read aloud. The number of faces in the hall decreases. Conversations shrink into corners you're not invited to. When you walk through the palace, the silence feels larger than it used to. Not heavier, just wider, as if the space around you has grown too fast for your footsteps to fill. You still wear the same robes. You still sit on the same throne. But you begin to wonder who's listening when you speak. You try to intervene once. A tax dispute in the south, too familiar to ignore. You draft a statement, mark it with your seal, send it through the usual paths. Days pass. No response. When it returns, the parchment is rewritten, your seal intact, but your words vanished. A footnote informs you that the issue has been resolved locally. You are thanked for your wisdom and restraint. You stare at the scroll for a long time before placing it on the floor beside you. No one picks it up, no one mentions it again. The next day, your audience is shortened to a single petitioner. The following day, none. Your steward bows slightly deeper than usual as he hands you an empty slate. He says nothing. Neither do you. The palace itself adapts. Wings you used to walk through now remain unlit. Gardens once groomed daily begin to dry at the edges. The guards at your door change less frequently. Servants whisper more quietly. Your food arrives on smaller trays. You see your wife only at ceremonies, and your children from a distance. The court no longer waits for your presence to begin. They act, record, announce. Your name is still spoken, still revered, but more like a placeholder, a sacred echo of something too far away to disturb. You exist in principle, not participation. You feel your role thinning around you, like cloth worn threadbare from too many hands. You begin staying in your chambers longer. At first out of confusion, then convenience, then surrender. You rise later. You answer fewer summons. You walk slower, not from age, but from purpose. You find yourself speaking aloud to no one, rehearsing lines that no longer need to be delivered. When you pass others in the corridors, they bow quickly, with less eye contact, as if they're embarrassed for you. You understand. This is not exile. This is absorption. You are still here, still Pharaoh, but the palace no longer waits for your command. It hums along without you, well-fed and well-governed by hands that used to serve and now simply function. You are not gone. You are just quieter than the noise that replaced you. At night, when the halls are still and no one knocks, their faces begin to return. Not all at once and not clearly, just fragments like light flickering through water. You see the boy who always ran too fast in the garden, his feet louder than allowed. You remember the way he laughed with his whole mouth, careless, unaware that someone was watching. Another appears, quieter, always careful with his words, eyes darting to the corners before speaking. You don't recall what happened to him. He was there, and then he wasn't. A servant folded his mat one morning and no one spoke his name again. But now he's here, in your thoughts, sitting beside you in silence while the oil lamp burns low. He doesn't look angry, just unfinished. Some you remember better than others. One had a scar above his lip from climbing the wrong wall. Another gave you a small carved figure, which you hid for weeks before forgetting where. You think about the way they stood in line with you, reciting the same verses, bowing to the same gods. Back then, none of you knew which gesture would be the last. You think of the one whose mother smiled too easily, who vanished the week your mother was moved to a better chamber. You never saw his body. You never saw a tomb. Just absence. Just new shoes in your room and quieter mornings. Sometimes you wonder what he would look like now, whether he'd be stronger than you, or smaller, or slower to smile. Whether he would have challenged you, or stood beside you, or disappeared anyway. Their voices come back in pieces, nicknames, mispronounced prayers, sudden bursts of laughter echoing off stone walls. You catch yourself mouthing their words in the dark, testing the sound of them after so many years of silence. You don't know if you miss them. That's not the right word. You didn't know them long enough to miss them, but you remember them, and remembering feels like guilt you didn't ask for. You wonder what they were told about you before they disappeared. You wonder what you would have done if you had been them. You tell yourself it wasn't your choice, that the court moved around you, that the priests whispered, the mothers positioned, the servants obeyed. But some part of you knows survival has shape, and yours was sharpened by their absence. You sit longer now in empty rooms, not because there's work to do, but because the silence feels more honest. You speak their names sometimes under your breath, not as offerings, not as prayers, just as facts. They lived. You outlived them, and now you carry that knowledge in the quiet behind your eyes. No statue will bear their likeness. No temple will burn incense in their honor. They will not be recorded in lineage scrolls, not even as cautionary tales. But you remember. You remember how they stood, how they fell, and how the space they left became your path, whether you asked for it or not, whether you wanted it or not, whether you ever knew how to carry it or not. You wake with a stiffness that clings. The light through the window is gentle, but it cuts across your vision like a blade. Your back protests as you sit up. The ache in your knees has become a familiar rhythm, a dull chant repeated with each step. The priests still call you radiant. The sculptors still carve you with straight shoulders and smooth skin. But your body knows better. It bends slower. It needs longer pauses. You are not yet 40, perhaps just past 35, but you feel as though you've lived through dynasties. Time has packed itself tightly into your muscles, wrapped your joints in memories too heavy to shake off. Every movement reminds you not of age, but of burden. In the mirror-polished bronze basin, your face stares back, not unfamiliar, but not quite trustworthy either. Lines have appeared where none were drawn before. The corners of your eyes pull downward when you smile, though you rarely do. A servant helps tie your robe, careful not to meet your gaze. You don't blame him. You don't remember when people stopped looking at you and started looking past you. The morning ritual is shorter now, trimmed of flourish, reduced to what must be seen and said. You walk the hall in silence. Each step echoes less than it used to, not because the palace has changed, but because you have. You've learned how to move without presence. You hear whispers of younger men, advisors, commanders, even your own sons, their laughter swelling after you pass, their plans stretching into futures you are not invited to shape. You wonder if they see your slowness as weakness, or if they simply stop noticing you altogether. Once you could walk the length of the garden in 10 breaths, barefoot, laughing with the wind. Now you choose shaded paths, sit often, and dread stairs. The worst part isn't the pain. It's the realization that the pain is now part of you. Not a wound, but a shape. You remember the men who ruled before you, how they seemed ancient when you were young. You now understand they were not ancient, just tired. Your physicians say you are healthy. Your scribes still write in present tense. But deep down, you know, your youth was traded for survival. Every choice, every silence, every vanished brother, each took something from your bones. You are not dying, but you are not growing either. You are holding steady in a river that never stops, and you can already feel how slippery the rocks beneath you are becoming. People still bow, they still chant your name, but their hands are younger, their eyes brighter, their days longer. And when you return to your chamber, to the cool silence and soft cushions, you sit with your pulse pounding in your wrists and your thoughts moving slower than before. You are still young, but already you are no longer new. They never raise their voices. They never rush. Their footsteps are soft. Their robes whisper against stone floors, their words always measured. The priests move through the palace like mist, unavoidable but never loud. When they speak to you, it is always with reverence, calm, rehearsed, rich in phrases that sound like obedience but leave no space for disagreement. They bow as they approach, hands folded, heads low. But their eyes are open, always open, watching more than they say, recording more than they ask. They know which days you sleep late. They know which offerings you pause before, and which gods you never mention. They even know when you hesitate at the threshold of your own temple. And they remember, because remembering is part of their power. Once you thought they served you. As a child, you watched them burn incense, chant names, pour libations at your feet. You believed their rituals made you holy. You believed their voices lifted you toward godhood. But now you understand. They do not follow. They guide, and they guard. The temples they control are vast, wealthier than your court, with grain stores, scribes, and secrets behind every sacred door. They answer only to the gods, or so they say. But the gods do not speak without them. And if you displease them, your name may echo in empty chambers while theirs multiplies in shadow. You've seen it happen before. Statues removed, names erased, burials undone. Not by invaders, but by holy hands. What unnerves you most is what they do not say. When war threatens, they offer blessings, but never counsel. When your son grows restless, they smile but never warn. When your dreams darken, they interpret nothing, yet their eyes seem to know. You wonder how much they hear from your own servants, the ones who light your lamps and carry your food and sweep your floors. You wonder how many scrolls they've copied before they reached your hands. You wonder how many prayers they have spoken, not for you, but about you. When you ask for their loyalty, they give it. But it feels rehearsed, too smooth, like something practiced in a courtyard far from your view. Enemies wear swords, priests wear silence. Enemies announce themselves. Priests kneel. And yet it is the priests you think of when you make a decision, when you sign an edict, when you choose one god's feast over another, when you pause at the altar and realize you no longer know which offering would truly be safe. You still play the role. You still smile. You still let them anoint your forehead and wave smoke around your head. But inside, you keep a new fear now, not of the gods they serve, but of the men who speak for them. Not because they might curse you, but because they already know how the story ends, and they might have already written it. He was small when you first named him, too small to understand what the word heir meant, or why his chamber was moved closer to yours, or why guards began to follow him even when he played in the courtyard. You watched him grow, his feet stronger, his face longer, his voice deeper. At first, he clung to you, full of questions and bright eyes. He mimicked how you sat, how you nodded, even how you held the papyrus when reviewing edicts. You remember touching his shoulder once, guiding his hand across the tablet, telling him how to read the names of gods. He smiled then, real, eager. You remember the warmth, and now you wonder when it began to leave him. He stopped looking you in the eyes gradually, not out of defiance, but something quieter, something more practiced. He started listening more than speaking, like someone had taught him that silence is safer. His answers became phrases you'd heard before, not from him, but from counselors, priests, and generals. His pauses were too perfect, his smiles too timely. You watched your own words come back to you, reshaped, hollow. You asked him once what he thought of a judgment you made, and he replied in the exact tone your chief scribe uses. You almost asked him who taught him to say that, but stopped yourself. You already knew. And when he walked away, you saw his mother standing in the corridor, speaking low to a servant, her mouth curved in that same soft, unreadable smile she's worn since the day you named her son. It's not betrayal. Not yet. He still bows, still attends rituals, still stands beside you at ceremonies. But something essential has shifted. He does not come to your chamber unless summoned. He does not ask about your health or your thoughts. He does not ask anything at all. He performs. He learns. He waits. You see the way others watch him now, with calculation, with hope. Some already kneel a little deeper when he passes. You hear his name spoken in places where yours once echoed. And when he prays for wisdom, not guidance. He does not ask you how to rule. He asks how long until he may. And he does not use those words, but you hear them anyway. At night, you lie awake and wonder if he will remember you kindly, if he will protect your name in the temples, or quietly replace it with his own. You wonder if he already practices the announcements that will follow your death, the speeches about honor, legacy, renewal. You wonder if he understands what the crown costs. You wonder if he ever truly needed you, or only the shape of you, the empty space he knew he must fill. You think of your own father, and how his face blurred the day you became Pharaoh. You remember the strange quiet of loving someone who could not belong to you. Now you understand what it feels like to be loved that way, from a distance, behind a mask, with hands that are already reaching towards something else. The ink is always fresh, the papyrus smooth, the stylus sharpened to a perfect point. They place the documents before you in neat rows, carefully aligned, with silk cords and golden seals waiting beside them. A scribe hovers at your shoulder, not watching your face but your hands, ensuring that each mark is where it's expected to be. You used to read everything. You used to pause, ask questions, request revisions. You used to send back entire scrolls for reworking, refusing to bless what you did not understand. But over time, the words began to blur. The pages multiplied. And now you recognize the shape of the process, but not the meaning. Names pass under your fingers that you don't recall. Places you've never seen. edicts written in a tone you never approved. You press your seal down anyway. They say these are your orders, that your authority is what moves Egypt, that your name stamped in wax still commands rivers, temples, and men. But you know better. These scrolls have already been written. These decisions already debated. Your role is ceremonial, like the chanting of a priest or the lifting of an offering bowl. You give legitimacy, not power. Without your seal, they'd be nothing. But with your seal, they are still not yours. The words do not come from your mouth, nor from your will. You sign because not signing would cause more questions. You press the stamp to wax because it is expected, because someone has to, because no one truly listens to a pharaoh who hesitates. You once tried to change a line, a minor decree about land distribution. You crossed out 3 words and added 2. The next morning, the same document returned, the original version untouched, but with a new ribbon color. No one mentioned your edit. No one explained the change. And the seal space waited, as if nothing had ever happened. That day, you understood. These were not letters. They were performances. And you were not the author, just the final actor on stage. Since then, you have stopped asking. You dip the seal in oil, press it down, move on, and the pile beside you grows. With each new scroll, a little more of your voice fades. There is comfort in repetition, in knowing what comes next. But there is also a kind of erosion, a quiet disintegration. You feel it in your wrists, in your breath, in the way your thoughts no longer fight back. You once imagined a pharaoh as a speaker, a judge, a builder. Now you understand that a pharaoh is a symbol, a face on a wall, a name in a cartouche, a seal on a scroll. The country moves without your voice. And still, every day, you sit at the low table, lift your stylus, and mark what others have already written. Not because it matters, but because stopping would make you vanish completely. The stairs are steep, cut into the rock with precision, yet worn smooth by the sandals of workers and priests. You descend slowly, one hand brushing the cool limestone wall, the torch in the other casting flickering shadows on carvings not yet painted. The air grows heavier with each step, thicker, older. Below, the silence is perfect. Not emptiness, but fullness without sound. You reach the first chamber and pause. This is the entry, the space for guardians, for prayers. You remember approving the plans, selecting which gods would watch your eternal passage. Now, standing here, it feels small. Or perhaps you've grown too used to spaces with voices. They take you deeper, past the offerings hall, past the statue niches, past the storerooms that already wait with empty shelves for food, perfumes, and linen. Each chamber is clean, carved, measured. The ceiling curves above your head like the sky in miniature, marked with stars that will never move. A priest walks beside you, naming each feature as if you'd forgotten. This is where the jars will go. This is where the texts will be placed. This is the antechamber. You nod, not because you agree, but because he expects it. The air is too still to argue. Deeper still, they lead you to the final chamber, your resting place. You step into the room that will one day become your forever. The sarcophagus is not yet here, but the platform is carved. The wall to your left is already filled with script, spells, protections, names, yours among them. You see yourself in the words as you will be remembered, not as you are, not as you feel. There is no line about fear, no spell for regret, no charm against forgetting your brother's voices. Only power, only triumph, only divinity. The words lie, but they are beautiful. You stand in the center of the room and wonder if you will be afraid when they finally close the walls behind you, if you will hear them walk away, if the silence will be louder than this. They ask if you approve. You say yes. It is finished, they say. It is perfect. There is nothing left to be done but wait. You walk back up slowly, the way you came, and the light from the surface feels sharp, like too much truth after a long dream. The guards fall into step. The priest mutters a blessing. The architect smiles, proud of his calculations. You nod to each of them and return to the palace. And that night, when you lie in your chamber, you do not sleep. You listen. To the walls, to the air, to the tomb below already written with your name, already cleaner than any room you live in. Ready almost ready. The night is heavy with heat, heavier than usual, though the palace walls are thick and the curtains soaked with perfumes. You lie still, but the linen sticks to your skin. The brazier has long been extinguished, yet you sweat as if fire still burns nearby. No voices, no chants, no footsteps in the hall. Only the shallow sound of your own breath, pulled in too fast and released too slow. Somewhere in the room, a single lamp flickers, not for ritual, just for comfort. You want to speak, to call for water, but your lips are dry and your throat cracks when you try. A boy, a servant, is seated on the floor nearby. He looks up, startled by your motion, unsure if he should move. He doesn't. He waits for a sign. None comes. You shift under the weight of the blanket, or try to. Your limbs no longer obey in the way they used to, not with strength, not with grace. You were walking yesterday, or was it the day before? You were at court, or praying, or maybe watching your son from a distance. Time folds in on itself, curling like papyrus in flame. The boy pours a little water into a cup and brings it to your lips. It spills. He apologizes, though softly, as if afraid someone might hear. But no one is listening. No priest has been summoned. No physician has entered. You were not thought to be dying. Not tonight. Perhaps you weren't. Until you were. You close your eyes, not from peace but from effort. And for a moment, the pain recedes. You hear things that aren't there. Sandals on stone, your father's voice, a woman laughing, a name whispered in the dark. None of it makes sense, but all of it belongs to you. Your fingers curl slightly, a reflex, nothing more. The boy reaches again, this time not with water, but with both hands. Unsure whether to steady you or wake you, you feel his fingers, thin and trembling, against your wrist. He breathes your name once, then again. Still, you say nothing. There is no final vision, no golden light, no chariot in the sky. Just heat and stillness, and a strange, wide quiet that opens around you like water. You do not know if your heart has stopped. You do not know if breath has truly left. But something has, something you cannot reclaim. And when your chest no longer rises, the boy does not scream. He does not run. He sits back on his heels, stares at your face and waits, because someone will come. Eventually, someone will call the priests. They will clean the body. They will paint the lips. They will say it was peaceful. They will say you were ready, but none of them were there. Only the boy. Only the heat. Only the quiet. They take you at dawn. Not the you who walked the palace halls, nor the you who held a scepter with fingers worn thin from years of decisions that changed nothing. What they carry now is a shell, a shape once called Pharaoh, now quiet and pliant in death. They strip away the linens, not gently, but with care shaped by duty. The boy who found you is gone, replaced by hands that have done this before. Hands that have prepared dozens, maybe hundreds of royal corpses. Each one declared sacred, none truly known. You are placed on a stone slab. The priest overseeing the rites does not say your name. That comes later. For now, he reads from a scroll, eyes scanning words older than memory, while your body is washed in water and wine and oil. The palace has already begun to erase you. The embalmers do not speak. They press their fingers into your flesh, feeling the heat long since faded, now replaced with the stillness of certainty. Your organs are removed one by one, liver, stomach, intestines, cleaned and packed with resin-soaked cloth, placed into jars marked with symbols you once approved. Your heart is handled last. It will be weighed, or preserved, or hidden. You will not know. You cannot argue. Your face is rubbed with salt and oils, your mouth held open as rites are whispered. Let the Pharaoh speak, they say, though you will say nothing. Your skin is dried, darkened, pulled taut. They wrap you slowly, methodically, linen after linen, layer after layer, binding memory into shape. Your eyes are closed now, painted with pigment, shaped to be seen. When the wrapping is done, you are dressed, or what remains of you is. Gold bands circle your arms. Amulets are tucked into folds. Your chest bears a scarab, its wings outstretched in protection you never asked for. Around your brow is placed the nemes, the striped headcloth worn by kings, stiff with starch and formality. They paint your lips red. They tilt your head just slightly, enough for the profile to suggest awareness. All of it is a lie, but it is a beautiful lie, one they've told for centuries. And your body, your shape, will join a long procession of lies carried on litters, beneath banners, to a tomb designed before your first tooth had broken through your gums. They carry you through halls you once ruled, though none dare say that aloud. You are too fragile now for glory, too still for command. The corridors are lined with courtiers, priests, women in white linen. Some mourn, some pretend, most watch. Your son is not among them, not yet. He will come later, wearing your crown, flanked by men you did not choose. They will declare him ready. They will speak of blood, of gods, of legacy. And you, the body of you, will descend once more into the tomb you walked with living steps. You will lie flat in a box of stone. They will close the lid. They will seal the chamber. And for the first time in your life, no one will be watching. The room is cold, not with wind, but with stillness. The air has not moved in hours, perhaps days. Your body lies on the carved stone, wrapped, adorned, and rigid, held together by ritual more than time. You are not alone, not truly. Around you are offerings, jars of honey, oils, dried meats, bolts of linen, tiny wooden figurines of servants, ready to labor in the afterlife. There are golden rings still warm from the touch of priests. There are scrolls rolled tight in sealed tubes. There is everything you were promised you would need. And yet, none of it sees you. None of it knows you. These are symbols, not gifts. Representations, not memories. You are still here, but already forgotten. They come to seal the tomb. Not a procession this time. Just workers. Silent. Efficient. One lowers the great limestone slab into place above the door. Another wipes his hands and checks the edges for dust. They do not look at your face. They do not speak your name. That is for the ceremonies, the temples, the future inscriptions. In this moment, you are not the ruler of the two lands. You are a task to complete, a passage to close. The slab touches down with a sound that seems to stretch forever, the scraping weight of finality. And with it, the torchlight is gone. No fire, no flicker, just stone, just dark, just the echo of something ending. Outside the tomb, life stirs. Your heir begins his reign. The priests prepare new hymns. The scribes adjust the official calendar. A few tears are shed. A few debts are repaid. Someone, somewhere, is already planning a festival in your honor. There will be incense, songs, painted walls. They will say you were strong. They will say you were chosen. They will say you are with the gods, and maybe that is true. But here in this silence, the gods do not speak. There is no wind, no water, just the weight of your name carved into granite, heavy and absolute. A name that no longer needs a voice to carry it. A name you no longer control. You do not breathe. You do not wait. You do not hope. There is nothing now that can be undone. No smile to fake, no blade to fear, no decision to shape, no heir to question, no priest to flatter. You ruled, you endured, you vanished, and the world does not pause. The sand shifts, the river flows, the stars turn. 1,000 years from now, someone might find you, or they might not. It changes nothing. For now there is only the sealed stone, the scentless dark, and the silence. You are Pharaoh. You are still. You are gone.